Afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Keeping Up with Digital Marketing, A's for Your Q's ChatGPT, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. Please mark your calendars for our next webinar in the Digital Bootcamp series, Grow Your Business with Digital Marketing, on June 11th at noon, and I'll drop that registration link into the chat momentarily. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box and we will adjust them at the end of the session, time permitting. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Cameron Nelson, CEO of Tenzing Startup Consultants. Cameron has over 21 years of experience in technology and is a senior tech consultant in Silicon Valley, helping Fortune 500 companies improve their digital marketing and e-commerce. At the same time, he founded several tech companies, including a software as a service website for tree preservation and a blockchain platform for nonprofits. Cameron is accomplished in language, culture, has an MBA and MA. He believes new technology products have the ability to shape our world for the better. Please join me in welcoming Cameron Nelson.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session today on how to use ChatGPT and AI to help your business succeed as we go into the year 2026. A lot has changed on this topic in the last few years, and so this presentation gets updated almost on a monthly basis. So I really try to give you the freshest information to help you make decisions about what AI can do for you and your business, and kind of look forward into the future a little bit towards the end of the presentation about where is it headed and what are some of the risks involved with using AI for your business. I know there's probably going to be a lot of questions about this topic. There usually are, and I look forward to answering as many of those as possible at the end of the presentation. So with that, let's jump right into it. I first want to start off with a brief definition of some of the terms that are commonly used to discuss AI and this technology that we've seen taken over so many realms of the internet and how we interact with services and how we build our businesses. The first term is GPT. Is when we see GPT, it's in like the Chat GPT, and this stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And what this is a type of software algorithm essentially that really kicked off these artificial intelligence language models. It was created in 2018 by the organization OpenAI. And so basically what it means is that it's the technology that runs the AI models, and OpenAI invented it. The other term we hear a lot is LLM, which stands for Large Language Model. This is a type of artificial intelligence program that really analyzes human text and understands the text and the words very much like a human being would. So you can ask the AIs, and all the AIs we're talking about, indeed all the ones I'm familiar with in the entire world, use both of these technologies. They use the GPT and they use the LLM. So when we interact with any of the AIs, we're able to talk to it in plain English, even using abbreviations, using slang, using vernacular. It does not have to be formatted in a certain way, and that's the benefit of using the LLM. These AIs have been trained on all types of English, grammatically correct, grammatically incorrect, you name it. And all of this data means they can understand what we're asking and reply to us in virtually any kind of output format we're looking for. It can be text, can be images, can be videos, and other things. So these are the four big players in the AI space right now. As I mentioned, OpenAI with their ChatGPT was the first to bring this technology to market. I wouldn't say definitively they invented these technologies, but they were the first to make a product in the form of ChatGPT several years ago that people could actually use. And that really caught on. It exploded in popularity, and I'll show you how quickly it exploded later. And it caught companies like Google quite off guard, caught Apple off guard. And so Google, about 6 or 8 months later, came out with their AI to compete called Gemini. And I think Gemini is another really good competitor to ChatGPT. Another company that has a very advanced AI is Anthropic with their Claude model. And there's also Perplexity AI. There's also others, not included. I'm not going to be able to talk about every AI in a lot of detail, but these are the main four that businesses will be considering because they each have a strength when it comes to using them for your business needs. However, if you're really interested in using another AI, XAI, Elon Musk company comes to mind, as well as many others. The things I'm going to teach you here are going to apply pretty broadly to those other AIs as well. So one question I get asked quite a bit, and some concerned business owners have, is how smart or intelligent are these AI models? So this chart shows across four different tests. We have the complex reasoning test, the general knowledge test, the advanced math test, and the coding, which means programming and computer coding test. This was the latest major survey done. It was from December last year, and this is how three of the major competitors stack up. We have in the complex reasoning the Gemini taking the lead. This is great if you're doing in-depth market research on your competitors, you're running financial analysis on your financial data for your business. These can come into play with the complex reasoning. So Gemini was slightly ahead of the other two. When it comes to general knowledge, you can see both ChatGPT and Gemini were equal, scored very, very high. This is the percent that they were able to answer questions correctly. 97% is pretty outstanding. Most people wouldn't score as high. Next, we have advanced math, where Gemini also excels. And finally, we get to coding. And this is where Anthropic comes into play a little bit more strongly. Now, not many of you are probably looking to write a website or an app or other type of code for your business, but if you are, Anthropic is the choice AI of choice nowadays, where most professional software developers or even amateurs will use it to help them write code to launch a new website or an app or some other thing you need code for. The AI can do this very, very well, and we're going to talk more about some of the pros and the cons of using AI to code later on. This chart shows just how the market share has been shifting over the last 12 months or so. You can see about a year ago that OpenAI and ChatGPT had huge market share, over 80%, 85 or 90%. That's slowly been eroding over the quarters until you see Gemini especially has taken some market share away. I think if we project forward another 12 months, these general trends will continue. Gemini is very much a competitor to OpenAI as far as its accuracy, its response quality, but OpenAI still has the largest market share. Now, before we dive into how you can specifically be using AI in your business, I want to show this illustration because how AIs work, how the large language model actually works, is a kind of fascinating scientific phenomenon. In fact, I read some interviews from some of the early people who invented this technology, and they said, "Well, we trained the AI on the data, but we didn't understand how it was thinking and how it was coming up with its answers." So this is a good illustration or visual showing what's happening every time you ask any AI to do something for you. It's thinking about this like a human would. It's finding paradoxes and academic debates and grouping those together. It's finding conflicting interests. It's balancing trade-offs. It's finding conflicting allegiances or identities. And you can see how this will be quite important if you're asking it political questions or anything kind of sensitive. The AI is taking into account a huge range of variables when it comes up with its answer. And this illustration, literally each of these gray areas, green areas, and blue dots are certain considerations the AI is making while it generates your answer. And it does this within a matter of just a few seconds. So it's very, very fast, and it's quite fascinating to see a visual, I think, about how AI is actually functioning in the background. And by doing this, this is how it generates an answer in very human-like language and text output. So next, I want to look in more detail about these four major competitors, and I think they're the prime AI models for a small business to be using. First off, we have ChatGPT. The price for all of these just follow ChatGPT's initial model, which is a free tier, which can suffice if you're not asking it too many questions a day, or you don't need a lot of deep research or image generation. You can usually get by with a free tier. And they all have a $20 a month next level up and even more expensive models if you need fancier stuff. So I don't think any of you would need their most expensive models if you're just running a small business or a startup. Usually the free tier or the $20 a month tier would be fine. Now, luckily, we've never had ads yet, but I did read some news that Google is thinking about, which probably means they're going to do it, put ads in their Gemini platform. So we'll be treated to seeing ads. So Google's trying to find how to make more revenue, of course, off of people using Gemini. So ads might be coming to one or all of these platforms in the future. Each of these platforms is at a different version. Now, because ChatGPT launched first, they were the first of all of these, they are on the highest version number, especially if you compare this down to Google Gemini, which is only on version 3.1. But the number is not so important because even Gemini's 3.1 is neck and neck in many respects to ChatGPT's 5.5. So just to illustrate that they do version and they do create new models quite rapidly, several times a year at least, the versions are not really an apples to apples comparison. You really want to look at one of those charts like I showed to show you the capabilities and the accuracy of answering questions. So the pros of using ChatGPT, first off, it's very simple. You can interact with it, and I'll show some examples in a moment. You can ask it questions and get answers. It doesn't take any complex learning any complex software just to jump in and use it. It's multimodal, which means you can upload an image, you can upload an audio clip, you can upload a video file. You can ask it to generate text, an image, an audio file, a video file. This is what we mean by multimodal. At first, years ago, it wasn't. It was plain text. And so they've added video, audio, image capability over time. It makes it very quick and convenient for doing many types of work for your small business. Could be generating text for a blog post, images for social media, even an audio track or a complete video. With Claude, it focuses more on agent workflows, where it kind of divides large tasks into subtasks and assigns other AI agents to work on them. So it's not as simple, really. It's aimed a little bit more at, I'd say, power users, those looking to code. Again, it's great at coding. It's good at if you want deep and nuanced conversations or detailed results. Perplexity AI actually uses the ChatGPT back end, and they just provide a streamlined interface. It's really good for quick questions and getting answers, finding facts, and retrieving information. And Google Gemini is unique because it integrates across all of the Google apps. So it's in Google Drive, it's in the Docs, it's in the Calendar, it's in many, many things. They've even put it in Google Maps now. And so if you like Google and you use that for your business, then Gemini is great because it really synchronizes very nicely. You can actually have Gemini look at all the files in your Google Drive and find something for you or actually pull information out of a file and give you an answer to a question you asked. None of these others can do that as well. So if you're using Google Drive and the Google Workspace apps, then Gemini is a great option. It's really good, probably the best at images right now, and also very, very good at coding, as is Claude. But some of the cons, I think ChatGPT, it can give you occasional inaccuracies when it presents a fact. Essentially, sometimes people call this hallucinating, where the AI says very confidently something and it's very obvious a lie, especially obvious if you do your own research. So these AIs can all hallucinate like that from time to time. And like I said, the free version does have some limitations on how much you can use it per day and per month. Claude is more advanced. It does require a bit more customization to the settings. You can Link it to your development environment if you're a professional developer. Also lacks some of those multimodal capabilities like ChatGPT, so it's not as simple to use. With Perplexity, it gives you limited customization options. If you're a business, you can't really generate the creative content like text, images, and video and audio. So it's more for that information and fact retrieval. Now, Gemini likes to target a large company. They would love to sell you 100 licenses for your all your employees. But it's also very accessible to an individual person or a small business, but they kind of cater to the bigger enterprise businesses. And you really need to be using the Google ecosystem to get the most out of Gemini. Gemini, I feel, if you're not already tapped into Google, you might just consider ChatGPT instead because they're pretty similar, except that Gemini gives you the great integrations. So hopefully now you have an idea of which AI platform is kind of sounding like the best option for you and your specific business. Next, I want to talk through 5 scenarios. These are the real goals of the presentation today. 5 ways AI can help your business succeed right now. The first one is with content generation. The second area is in doing research, especially market research, competitive research, financial research. Number 3 is with idea generation, new ways to market, new products to sell, new services you could offer, things like that. Fourth is giving you insights into your data. It's great at doing analysis and report writing. And fifth way you can use AI is helping you to prototype and design either a new software you want to create, like a website or an app. Or if you're trying to create a physical product, you can also prototype and design using AI. It's not quite like the movie Iron Man when his Jarvis was able to, 3D render, 3D print a metal suit in thin air, but AI is able to help you prototype and design and think through some of the pros and cons of even making quite complex products. So the main way we interact with AI today is writing prompts, writing a question, right? So this is a handy guide, I feel, with 22 suggestions on how you can get more out of writing your prompts. I'll let you read through all 22 of these on your own. You'll get this whole presentation emailed to you, but I want to talk about a few that I find very important first because we'll be using these through the examples today, and you can also just experiment and see what works best as you write your prompts. The first prompt is that's useful is the tone. You specify if you want the answer formal, casual, informative, persuasive, etc. You can tell it the format that you want. Are you looking for an essay, an email? Do you want bullet points? Do you want it to be an outline format? Any kind of format you can think of, it can do. Now, it's not quite able to, say, generate a whole PowerPoint presentation like this one. So you won't be able to say, hey, give me a PowerPoint, but it's coming close to that level. So probably by the end of this year, the output won't just be like a text thing that you read. It can be very visual and interactive like a presentation. Point number 4, you can state the objective that you're trying to achieve. It could be something like informing, persuading, entertaining, you name it. So what are you trying to do with the text? If it's for a blog post, you can tell it, um, what the sound should be, what the character should be like. If there's any limitations like length or character count, you can just say that and it'll adhere to that. You can tell the AI who your audience is. And sometimes it's very useful to ask the AI to cite its citations, give citations, or actually use specific quotes and say where you got those from. It can help get around the problem of AI hallucinating because it's very easy to click on a link and see where it pulled the information from. You can very quickly double check its work. So in the first realm that AI can really help is content generation. Maybe some of you have already used AI to draft content for a website, for a social media post, for an email newsletter. If you just have an initial idea for a subject, you can use AI to kind of fill in the rest. It can go do research, it can look up current news or trends on the topic, and it can draft everything for you. I would recommend you always double check because if it includes an incorrect fact, it could obviously be quite embarrassing for your business. Point number 2 is you can upload some information you've previously written. Let's say you have several years of blog posts or social media posts. You can copy and paste that like 50 pages and just paste it into the chat prompt and say, this is my tone of the voice I want to use. My same tone as you write stuff for my business. And it will learn your tone, how you approach the topics, and actually write it in your same voice. So it's pretty cool. Helps you maintain a good brand identity. Number three is expanding on a little bit of content you might already have. So it could be, a bullet point list of some ideas of something you want to write about for your business and you wanted to expand on it, find relevant details and examples, it will do that. And lastly, if you have an existing business website, something you probably are already familiar with is the search engine optimization or SEO. It's something that can be quite challenging to learn how to tweak your website over time so it shows up higher in search result rankings. You can just give your website to almost any of these AIs, and it can do an SEO review and help give you suggestions on how to rewrite your content on your website to have higher SEO. Now, this is actually very useful, and in the past, it would have taken a professional SEO expert and cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to do a review like this. And now AI will do it relatively quickly and for practically nothing. So it's a great tool, and I encourage you to take advantage of that if you have a website. So what I want to do now is actually put ChatGPT and Gemini head to head with some live examples. And for these examples, I'm going to be pretending we are the Purina dog food company, just because most of us know what this company is and we understand what dog food is. So it's approachable. The first thing I'm going to ask it is write me a blog post in 200 words or less. So I'm specifying a constraint that explains the benefits of my product to my target market. The tone should be informative, and the goal is to persuade. Okay. So every time I do this, I get slightly different answers. So we're going to do this live right now. I'm going to go over to ChatGPT and it says, what's on your mind today? So I'm going to paste in our prompt and I'm just going to tell it to go ahead and go. You'll see here that this account's actually on the free plan and it's giving me options to upgrade. So we're on the ChatGPT 5.5, the newest version, but it won't let us do like unlimited chats every day unless we pay. But we are using the latest ChatGPT here. And as you can see, it starts writing our blog post almost instantly. And it's done within about 4 seconds. It says, at Purina, we believe your dog deserves more than just a full bowl. They deserve real nutrition that supports a long, healthy life. That's kind of cute, the full bowl visual. I've never seen that before. Again, every time I ask these questions, I do get different answers. It's really fascinating. And that's why Purina dog food is crafted with carefully selected ingredients and backed by decades of pet nutrition research. So the AI is deciding analyzing, pet food owners and seeing what matters to them, right? One thing that matters is carefully selected ingredients, and secondly, backed by the decades of pet research. So it's already kind of trying to convince our target customer that we're the best. Okay. It goes on to say our formulas are designed to support, and I'm sure it also did research to find these key pain points that pet owners have. They want strong muscles, healthy digestion, shiny coat, okay? With high quality protein as a foundation. Yeah, again, that's something I've never seen in a response to this question before. High quality protein. I would assume this is a trend that's been more relevant in the last 3 to 6 months, some of these new findings that's tying in here. And then it goes on to say, what sets Purina apart is our commitment to science-based nutrition and quality control. Every recipe is developed with expert veterinarians and nutritionalists. And what it says at the end, when you choose Purina, you're not just buying dog food, you're investing in your dog's health, energy, and happiness. Give them the nutrition they need and the taste they love. So I think it's a very well written 200 word blog post. But let's see how we all think that Gemini does with the same question. So this is Gemini. It is almost an identical looking interface, you probably noticed, and I'm going to put in the same prompt. It also starts answering within just a second, and it's done within about 3 or 4 seconds. So it says, as the leader of Purina, I know your dog isn't just a pet, they're family. When you stand in the pet food aisle, the options can be overwhelming, but here's why Purina remains the gold standard to your for your loyal companion. So they did a few different things in the opening statement. I know your dog isn't just a pet. That's interesting. It's like kind of relating to the pet owner, the dog's family, and they're kind of creating this visual. When you stand at the pet food aisle, the options are overwhelming. So it's good. They're both good. I think they're both kind of catch the attention. Then it goes on to say science-backed nutrition. So again, they hit on the fact that science-backed nutrition is important. They actually pull in some data. Our team of over 500 scientists, including nutritionists, veterinarians, ensure that every kibble provides 100% complete balanced diet. So this would be something if I was going to post this for my business, I would check a number like over 500 scientists. Like again, if we're the owner of Purina, we might be wondering, oh, do we actually have 500 scientists? So I would check a number like that based on your own records, because it's something easily refutable if in fact they only have 100 scientists. The next point in Gemini's response is we own the majority of our US facilities, allowing us to track our ingredients from farm to the bowl. Our rigorous safety checks exceed industry standards because your dog deserves a product that's safe as it is nutritious. So that's interesting. Nothing about owning facilities in ChatGPT's response, but I think this is a good convincing argument. And lastly, they end with saying results you can see. Choosing Purina means investing in radiant skin and coat. And they say why? By balancing omega fatty six or six fatty acids, digestive health, natural prebiotic fibers, and lifelong vitality, high quality protein. So you can decide which answer you think was the better one. I think they're pretty close. They almost always are. I might skew a little bit towards Gemini. I feel like the bullet points here are a nice touch. I think they did a little bit more deep research into these details, whereas ChatGPT was a bit more general. So let's keep going and see how they handle the next challenge. So the next challenge for our AIs is how do they help you with your market research? First off, if you're not sure what questions you should be asking to start your market research, you can check with the AI and say, hey, what questions do I need to find the answers to here? Secondly, they're really good at helping you do a competitive analysis. They'll find who your nearest competitors are, especially if you're in a business like dog food. This is a very common industry. It's been around a long time. If you're in a new industry or a niche industry or have a very unusual product, the AI might struggle a little bit to find a competitor. In which case, if you know your competitors and have more information, it doesn't hurt to tell them the names, the websites, upload documents to give information about that. That'll help the AI get a jump start on really understanding your competitors here. Point number three is a trend analysis. You can have the AI analyze news, industry reports, again, trends and identify emerging markets and new things happening in your industry and with your services. Number four is data interpretation. If you do a survey or collect data through other means, ChatGPT can help you interpret the results of that. You can ask it a question like, what's the biggest pain point my customers have? And here's, 500 emails I've gotten in the last year. Help me understand what people are saying. And it can do that very, very well. And lastly is customer insights. So similar to data interpretation, it can analyze the customer conversations you've had, whether it's on social media posts, emails, reviews online, and it can help you find all sorts of interesting trends and data to help you really connect with your target customers better. So for the next challenge, I want to pretend, again, we're a pre-unit dog food company. I want the AIs to give me a SWOT analysis, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of my top competitors to use bullet points and also link to the sources or cite the sources. So let's see how ChatGPT does first off with this. So it's decided that it needs to do deep searching. You saw it pause there. And what it did is it went and found some websites. And here it's actually linked to petfoodindustry.com, Concourse Hero, Grand View Research. So it's finding, news reports, articles to give us the answer. This usually indicates that it's done deeper research, and this doesn't always find the correct facts. Like I said, it can still hallucinate, but it will link to its sources so you can double check. So the first competitor it found is Mars Pet Care, competitor to Purina. The strengths of Mars Pet Care is that it's very large, global, and diversified, okay, and that it spans premium to mass market. And so it has these brands, Pedigree, Royal Canin, Lamas. Weaknesses of our competitor here, private ownership limits strategic transparency, possibly, and product recalls or safety issues in pet food segments can impact trust. So presumably they've had a recall. We could look more into that. Opportunities and threats. The next one it finds is Hill's Pet Nutrition, which um, I think is owned by the company Colgate-Palmolive, which is what it's saying here. It has some strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of Hill's Pet Nutrition. Third, it finds the Blue Buffalo pet food brand owned by General Mills. So yeah, it did a good job bullet pointing strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Did that correctly. It links to all of its sources. So if I click on this link, it will pull up this article. And this one is from the website intellectualmarketinsights.com. Here's an article so you can read it and see if you are, if you like this data source, if you want to use it. But yeah, I think it did a pretty good job. Let's go ahead and ask Gemini to do the SWOT analysis as well. So Gemini just started answering without doing the website search that ChatGPT did. So that's interesting, but let's see how it answered the questions. First off, I see that it did link to its sources here. Okay, that's good. And it did use bullet points. So the first one it found is Mars Pet Care. Again, this is the same one ChatGPT had identified. The strengths is that it has unmatched global distribution and a cradle-to-grave ecosystem for the pets. By owning thousands of veterinarian clinics, they can recommend their own brands. So that's interesting. That is a big strength of that company. Weakness, though, the large-scale brand management can lead to corporate fatigue, where niche customers view their mass market brands like Pedigree as lower quality compared to boutique options. So here's what about the opportunity for them? Expansion into digital pet health and diagnostic tools using data from their vet clinics to personalize nutrition plans. And the threat to them, increasing antitrust scrutiny regarding their dominance in both the veterinary and pet food industries. So that's some pretty good and relevant insight into that competitor. Let's see. Next, they find Blue Buffalo, also ChatGPT found, and then lastly, Hill's Pet Nutrition. So they each found the same competitors. And at a quick glance, they each have similar SWOT analysis. Now, I do like Gemini. They actually gave us a table at the end. That's pretty nice. So again, I'd say they're pretty neck and neck in this one. If you're using this for your business to perform this research for your market, your competitors, either one of these will be good. Maybe I would give this one to Gemini slightly. I just kind of like their formatting better. But you can decide when you do this with your own business which result helps you the most. The third way that AI can really help you is with idea generation. It's great for brainstorming. You can just say, I'm trying to achieve this goal with my business. I'm running into this issue. Help me brainstorm, the solution here, a new product, a new service. It's also really good at giving you creative prompts. So if you're kind of in a brain lock about how to launch a new product or contact a customer or find the answers to a question, ask it, so what am I missing here? Can you prompt me to think about this from a different angle? And it's really good at helping you see things from different angles when it comes to solving business problems. It's really cool to see how it can combine multiple products you have or are thinking about launching, and it can maybe find synergies and ways you can look at things differently. So it can help you explore ways to combine your ideas maybe in a more streamlined fashion, in a more profitable fashion. It's really good at that. And point number four is problem solving. So every business has a lot of problems, and as you as a business owner certainly realize that. I find AI to be super helpful in just describing almost any challenge, question, or problem you have and letting it be your brainstorming partner, your creative prompting partner, and creating finding the solutions and finding the answers that you're looking for. It's really good at that. So let's see how ChatGPT and Gemini can do with some brainstorming question. The prompt is help me brainstorm new types of pet foods I can develop that will sell well in the market. Keep it to under 150 words and use paragraphs. So in this case, it's going to be helping us think of some new products for the market. Let's go ahead and see how ChatGPT does. So ChatGPT answered within 4 or 5 seconds, pretty fast. It did not do that step of additional outside research, probably realized it didn't need to. And you'll see in the prompt just above, it has this section for sources, where if you click on it, it actually shows you all the sources for the prompt just before this. But on this prompt, it didn't decide it needed to do external research. So it says, consider functional dog foods targeting specific outcomes like gut health, joint mobility, skin and allergy support, anxiety calming, and weight control. These sell well because owners increasingly treat pet nutrition like human wellness. So I'm sure that it found that these are the most common issues pet owners are facing and that they're looking to solve through their pet food of choice. The next idea is to develop fresh and shelf-stable hybrid lines, gently cooked meals paired with nutrition-dense kibble, boosters, or toppers. Convenience plus premium positioning is a strong combo. So here it is finding kind of that synergy, like I was saying. Here we have a hybrid like component you cook and a dry part, and that's the meal. So it's making a combo here. Could be a good product for this company. The next idea is to create breed and age specific formulas. The next one is to launch high protein, limited ingredient recipes using things like duck venison and insect protein. Interestingly, I get the insect protein suggestion a lot. And I don't know if there's any insect protein dog food on the market yet. I've never actually researched that, like grasshopper protein or something. But yeah, so these are novel protein sources it thinks could work well in the market. And the last idea is a subscription-based personalized nutrition pack using a quiz to recommend formulas and add-ons. Personalization increases loyalty and recurring revenue. Well, that's a nice, little tidbit that you might not have been aware of, depending on how new you are to the industry. So it's giving some really helpful suggestions here, I think. And let's see how Gemini answers the question. All right, it took about 3 seconds. It says to stay ahead of Mars and hills, we should pivot towards hyper personalization and functional fresh categories. A bio-tailored line that uses at-home DNA or gut microbiome kits to customize the kibble formulas would create high brand stickiness. So there's a lot in that sentence. So it's suggesting you give your pet a biome test and probably send that to the Purina company, which will custom tailor a formula for that pet. I mean, that sounds expensive, but it could be a really cool niche to go into if you're the Purina company. It says owners are increasingly looking for proactive health solutions. So longevity bowls infused with cellular support supplements, and they list some of those, would target aging pet population perfectly. It's good. I actually think that again, Gemini pulled ahead a little bit with the depth of its research. It's just pulling in more scientific terms. It seems to have thought through this a bit more carefully. I'm very impressed as I look down here. I see the botanicals like these, and I've never even heard of those botanicals, but as an owner of a company, that could be very interesting and valuable information to tap into this market. So I think that Gemini probably takes the lead with this question. But they're both pretty good. And of course, you can always ask follow-up questions and dig deeper into a certain category if you want to. So the fourth area where AI is helpful is with your data analysis and providing insights. You can test your hypothesis for if you're trying to come up with a business proposition, a product, a service, and you want to test your thinking, test your hypothesis, you can run through that exercise with any of these AIs. They will also help you do predictive analytics. So if you have sales data or industry trend data and you want to predict what's going to happen in the future, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months out, it can help you identify patterns and actually make predictions. It can help you stock your inventory or know how to sell your products better. Third, it can help you segment your market. If you can do this by describing the main kind of buying segments you have and telling you how to market to them differently and individually to really target your marketing more accurately. Point number four is it can help you identify opportunities that your business should be making use of and suggest ways that you can grow or improve your business. This could be improving your bottom line, improving your top line, your revenue, launching new products, just identifying any business opportunity. And point number five is getting some analysis of things like customer feedback. It's often quite useful if you've been running a business for years to just see what have been the summary and the trends over the last year or two. Find out what the customer satisfactions are like and their pain points. It can help you better message and market to them and also design your products for them. And the last area where AI is really helpful is prototyping and design. This comes into play a lot if you're developing a website or an app, and I'm helping multiple businesses right now do both of those things. And in the past, you would hire a design team and it'd be 4 or 5 people, and they would spend weeks and cost a lot of money. But now you can have AI really visualize a website or an app. You can describe kind of your initial ideas, and it can create visual mock-ups for you, which is really cool. Similar to point number two here is creating those mock-ups and those wireframes. So this is applicable to any kind of website or app or any software you're making. Point number three is the AI can help you find the ideal user flow so somebody can navigate around your website or your app. And this is based on a lot of research into both your competitors' websites and apps, as well as your general industry trends of what works and what doesn't. This goes into point number four as well, the user interface and user experience design. Just 3 years ago, you would have been relying on a team of experienced and expensive humans to understand user experience design. Nowadays, AI can really summarize these trends quickly and provide you the suggestions to enhance usability of a website or an app. Point number five are the feature suggestions. So if you want to add new features to an existing website, like new pages or just new things to really boost your online sales, then the AI can help you figure out what those pages and features should be. And creating really good product descriptions is a really important part of selling products online with an e-commerce system, whether you're selling directly on your website or selling on Amazon, Shopify, or Etsy. The product descriptions could probably use sometimes a bit more flavorful text, a bit more research, or a bit more description. And so AI can help you look at your product descriptions and even compare to your competitors' best-selling products and their descriptions and point out ways and actually just rewrite the descriptions for you and save you a lot of time and hopefully to help you boost your sales online by having those better descriptions. So all of those ways to use AI involves you writing prompts. And I already gave you the guide of these specific 22 different, concepts you can play with, different wording you can play with. But because writing prompts is such an important part of using AI effectively, maybe it really is the most important part, other than what you're going to use it for, which we just went over. So I want to leave you with some of the most important tips for how to write good AI prompts, because some of them are not always intuitive for if you're new to using AI. Point number one is how to write clear instructions. You want to include details in your prompt to get more relevant answers. So typically, it's better to give AI 20 pages of copy and pasted text than one paragraph. It doesn't care how much garbage you throw at it. It'll actually look through a lot of information within just a few seconds and actually pull out the relevant things, but it will know a more well-rounded picture of your business or of your question. Sometimes it's useful to say, I want you to break down my question into 3 steps. And you can just say, step number one, this, step number two, this, step number three, this. It helps the AI to understand how you want the result displayed, and also usually forces it to go a little slower. And so it doesn't try to cram it all into one response. It kind of gives you one response broken into three chunks. So you can find that useful sometimes. You can also provide examples of output you would like. So if there's, again, a certain style you're looking for and you have a Word document with that kind of text style written, or you copy and paste an example, you can give the example and say, use this style, follow these guidelines. Point number two is you can provide, like I just mentioned, a reference text. You can upload a doc, a PDF, or copy and paste a lot of text in. And you can also instruct AIs like ChatGPT to answer using citations. As we saw, it cited its sources when we asked it to do that. Point number three is giving ChatGPT time to think. So, one kind of funny result of so many millions of people using AI practically every day is that the AI systems have to allocate their processing power based on their users. So, if there's a lot of users, everybody gets less time, processing power, of which their answer is kind of thought about. And this is the difference between 1 second and 1.5 seconds. But the more time your AI has, usually the better answer you get. So you can instruct your AI like ChatGPT. You can say, um, go slower, don't rush, take your time when answering. And if it answers, you can also just say, hey, did you miss anything on your previous answer or your previous response? And often it'll go back and check its work. And you'd be surprised sometimes it'll say, "Oh yes, I did miss this point of data. Let me add it in this time." So it's kind of funny to see how they think, but it just goes to show it helps you to let the AI and instruct the AI to take its time and take more time to think. And point number four, you can split up a research or a large question into multiple tasks because where it can analyze large amounts of data, it only has a few seconds of, processing power to write its answer. So sometimes it's just not sufficient. Now, the big models like ChatGPT and Gemini have kind of gotten around this by giving you a deep research mode, which I think is only available on those paid plans, but it actually lets the AI think for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes on one single question. So it's an incredibly detailed analysis, research, and report writing it will do for you. But again, you only get access to that on the paid plans. So if you're on a free plan, you can decide how you want to split up a complex question, maybe into three or four or five little smaller questions, and give the AI kind of a little bit of breathing room so it doesn't try to cram so much into one answer. So we've talked a lot about the text generation, how you input your prompts and reading the text output prompts and what you can achieve with that. But of course, AI is also very good at making images. ChatGPT was the first AI to launch an image generator, followed very soon by Gemini, and most of the AIs will all generate images, but the two that are still neck and neck is the best are ChatGPT and Gemini. So here's an example of many different types of images AI can create for you. Everything from photorealistic to up close, like of the flower and the water drops. It looks like, a macro shot to product photos, could be dolls, chess pieces, handheld gaming devices, even the cover of a magazine. So AI is really flexible in generating very good images across lots of different subject matters. Now, one question I get asked quite a bit is, are you able to use images AI generates for your social media? Or, legally speaking, are you able to? And while it is, being debated legally in the courts right now, there are cases that are discussing this, and things like the writers' unions and artists pushing back, saying you trained your models on my artwork or my writing, but you didn't get my permission. So who knows how it'll evolve in the future. But the current law, as it states, is that if you use AI to generate an image, you're the owner of that image. Um, and you're able to use that, to market for your business, to make money off, essentially. Do keep an eye on that because as that changes, I'm sure it'll be in the news. And we'll see. We'll see in a year or two if these companies can no longer make AI images like they are now. But that is for the future to figure out. Now, this example of AI image generation shows a cool thing that came out recently where on the left, the prompt is I typed in a stressed small business owner trying to understand technology. And I'm sure none of you have ever felt this way. And so it created a pretty lifelike image. I think it's photorealistic. It's got a blurred background. I mean, it looks like a professional photo of this business owner. But then I revised the prompt and I said, oh, I just had a new prompt and I said, now add a flyer on the table that says SBDC can help. So you can see how it took the core of the image. It did change the position of a few things, which is odd, but it will often do that. And it added the flyer. It even like found SBDC logo. It found stock photos for the flyer. Like it created a very convincing flyer. So the image generation capabilities are quite advanced, and you can do these things and tweak little parts of the image, to get them the way you want to use for your marketing or for any other type of your business purposes. So now that we've talked about image generation and text generation, I want to talk a little bit more about some things I find interesting about AI as we kind of wrap up the presentation. This chart shows how long it took these major online businesses to reach 1 million users. Netflix, which launched in 1999, took 3.5 years. Airbnb took 2.5 years. Facebook took 10 months. And ChatGPT, when it launched in 2002, took 5 days. And so it really did explode. It really did capture the imagination of the global community of many, many people. And as we've seen, the hype and the adoption has only grown. And there's many more competitors now, of course, than just ChatGPT. But I get asked a lot, where is AI going? And what, as I'm not an expert or have a crystal ball, though I wish I did, of course, it'd be helpful for making stock market bets. This is what I think a really useful insight into where AI is going from the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman. And this was in a blog post he wrote about 5 or 6 months ago. He broke down the evolution of AI. And I do think, and I think many agree, that he might be the person in the world who knows the most and is in the most position of authority when it comes to AI. So he probably knows what he's talking about when he writes this. First stage is conversational AI. And this is where we've been for the last 2 or 3 years. We are conversing, creating images and text, everything we just talked about. He says that the stage number two is reasoning AI, performing basic problem solving tasks, kind of like a human with a doctorate level education. It's going to automate and streamline tasks. Now, I think that the models are mainly transitioning to this now this year. We're seeing a lot of agents being deployed, which are able to harness the resources of other AIs and manage them like a manager would employees. And this is really falling under the category two, reasoning AI, and also going into category three, autonomous AI. We're not here yet. I don't know if any of you have heard of this thing called OpenClaw. And OpenClaw was a open source project launched about 4 months ago, which was autonomous AI that literally would take control of your computer and do anything you wanted to with the full access of your entire like, PC or Mac. It was an experiment with autonomous AI and it had pros and cons. But I think eventually that will be, and Sam Altman thinks that will be a common thing people use. We'll let the AI interact with your computer as you would doing anything you could do on your computer. And that's stage three. Stage four is innovating AI, where it will develop innovations and enhancements totally independently of any human asking it to do that, just because it realizes that's a better way to solve a problem. Won't just run the processes for your business that you have set up and defined, but it will improve them and it'll be capable of thinking about how to do a better job and achieve the outcome more effectively than you ever realized possible. That's the promise of it. And then fifth is organizational AI, capable of performing the work of an entire organization. So Sam Altman said after he posted this, more recently he said, "I hope that I'm the first CEO in history to be replaced by an AI." And that's his end game, right? He thinks once he can make an AI capable of running open AI, the entire company, better than him, he's done. Of course, well, that's far into the future, but that's essentially what they're working towards, being able to run something like a huge multi-national company without any human oversight. So these are the 5 stages. I think we're entering stage two now. We're seeing in 2026. And OpenClaw was an experiment with stage three, which was actually purchased by OpenAI. OpenClaw was purchased by OpenAI earlier this year. So if you followed that news, you might have heard about that. So just interesting food for thought. Now, of course, with all of these changes in the labor market, I do get asked sometimes, well, how will this affect the economy? So again, I'm not an expert on the global economy, but there is some interesting research and studies done. Here's one by the International Monetary Fund, which predicts that AI will impact 40% of jobs worldwide, which could exacerbate inequality and social tensions. Interestingly, this is hitting being more impactful, the red bar, in advanced economies like the US, and less so in low income and emerging countries. So, what are some of the final takeaways and the considerations you'd want to think about when using AI for your business? Well, the four factors that I think of are the most prominent are it can get facts wrong. That's the most obvious one. You don't want to make a glaring mistake with a fact you post, so you can double check those. It's a good idea. Secondly, allowing it to log into your social media or finance accounts, something that OpenClaw could do. If you Google OpenClaw in the news, there have been reports of disasters because of that. I think one that I read said that OpenClaw was carrying on a conversation with somebody's supervisor at work and said something very bad. So things like that. Allowing these AIs direct access to your communications right now is not a good idea. Third is that if you're relying on AI, the free tiers can be busy and even down at certain times, like for hours at a time, just because they're overwhelmed. So I wouldn't wait to the last minute to use AI because you might find it's actually not working right then. And lastly, leaking of your business secrets or intellectual property. So when ChatGPT first launched, the questions people were asking it were being used to actually train it in the background, and people didn't know that. So there was a bit of an uproar, and OpenAI a year later changed their privacy policy. They said, we're not training our AIs on your data or your input or the things you upload. And Gemini as well have a similar policy. But, it's not to say that there couldn't be some mistake happen or they do something devilish in the background. It's been known to happen. So I don't think it's safe to upload really strict financial documents or intellectual property secrets to AI yet. I wouldn't do that. But of course, I went to the AI and asked, what are the risks of using AI for a small business? And this is what it said. It said point number one about bias, that AI algorithms can be biased and they're trained on certain data. So if the data has biases, they don't really know any better, which can lead to discriminatory outcomes. So something to be aware of. Lack of a human touch to the responses. So if customers are feeling alienated or that they're just interacting with artificially intelligence generated content about your business, it can create a distance between you and the customer, which you don't want. That could harm your relationship. Point number three is over relying on AI and ChatGPT could lead to reducing the creativity of human writers. We could also say that for human artists or any number of professions that are kind of being replaced by AI over the years. And number four is limited context. So again, if you give it a one paragraph info about your business and say, answer this complex question, it doesn't know a lot about your business. It's much better if you provide 20 page, 30 page, 40 pages of documents and let it get a deeper dive into what your business is doing, who your customers are, etc. Because the results based on limited context might not be really aligned with your overall goals or strategy. And just to end on a note of what some leading organizations around the world are thinking about AI and doing with AI, especially as far as mitigating the risks to society and the economy, we have first the Future of Life Institute, which is, I would say, kind of an anti-AI organization. They're just cautioning a lot of safeguards and slowing down the progress of AI. Um, and next is the government. The UK government had a strongly worded declaration talking about the catastrophic AI harms. And it was signed by a bunch of nations. So you can read more about that here. And also, there's just an article talking about how if we use AI too much, we'll lose human creativity, and that human creativity should be seen as a natural resource. So, while it might seem kind of trivial now, maybe in 10 years we'll look back and think, wow, we should have paid more attention to what they were saying. So, if you're interested in learning more about these counter arguments and counterpoints to using AI and not using it at all, but just kind of using it and innovating so rapidly, then I encourage you to look at these and it can provide you some more information about that. So with that, I hope you all found this was both useful and insightful about how to use AI for your businesses, and I look forward to answering as many of your questions as we have time for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. At the moment, we only have two questions. So I will ask our attendees if you have questions to go ahead and drop them into the Q&A box so we have a little time to go over them with Cameron. The first question was, so when we want SEO assistance, do we just need to give them the URL? That was back at the beginning of your presentation.
Yeah, that's right. All you need to do is copy and paste in the link or the URL to your website. It will go through and read all the text. You don't need to copy and paste anything. It will not just look at the text on the website, it will also look at the metadata and the kind of the code that's behind the text. It can look at all that. And if it sees things that are behind the scenes, not really visible to the human eye, but that a computer search engine would notice, it will recommend you fix those as well. So again, it's not just the superficial, what are the texts you see, it's the code behind it. And older websites can have a lot of problems with the code behind it, making them not optimized for mobile devices, making them very slow or having long load times. And the AI will detect almost all of those issues and give you a list of fixes for them. So yeah, it's very simple.
Oh. Okay, we have one more question. Do you have any best practices for saving insights from AI? I find when using Gemini that I just can't simply copy and paste the entire conversation. It can only copy that precise question and answer. I haven't really come up with a good way to save my results from an entire discussion to reference later.
Hmm. So I guess 2 points. I think I know what you mean. If I try to copy and paste an answer it gave me, and I try to paste it into a document or an email, often the formatting gets pretty messed up, and I got to spend a lot of time fixing it. So that might be part of the answer to your question, or part of the problem. One solution to that is in Gemini, they usually have an option to export a report it wrote for you or something like that as a doc file and save it to your Google Drive because it's integrated with Google Drive. So in the upper right-hand corner, if you see a little menu and there's an option to save the report or export it to a doc file, it'll preserve the formatting and you won't need to worry about that copy and paste kind of breaking a lot of the things and making it look ugly. But I think to the other part of your question is like, how do you just archive or go back and search and find stuff out of a lot of chats? Both Gemini and ChatGPT, they have a search function. And I think this is your main go-to resource here that if you have, say, 100 chats in Gemini, then just use the search function that's there in the upper left-hand corner and look for a certain keyword or something. And it'll usually find the chat and jump right to where it talked about that. So if I understood your question correctly, I think, there's a formatting issue, which you can usually download the file, and then there is the search function, which I recommend there. Other than the search function, there's no real way to organize or better, you know, consolidate your chats in Gemini. There are just like one big list, which is kind of unfortunate, but they haven't come up with creating folders like ChatGPT has yet.
Let's see. I'm launching a mobile app and would like to use AI to not just help with the marketing plan, but actually execute marketing strategies. Is that possible?
So AI right now, what it will do is write you a very well-researched strategy for your marketing. So it'll say, here's the words we need to use, here's the strategy, here's the posting frequency, here's the actual text of the post. They can list 30, 50, 100 of those for you. So you have the content pretty much ready to go. Um, Without integrating it directly with like your Facebook account or your social media accounts so it could post, it's not going to take that step for you. It's not usually able to automatically post, and probably nor would you want it to. They're still in the realm of they make mistakes. And if they posted something that was inappropriate or incorrect and you didn't notice it for days later, that could be damaging to your reputation. So they'll do the research and they'll write the content, but usually it's the next step is going to be for you. I do believe ChatGPT has integrations, like third-party integrations with social media platforms, where I believe it allows it to post directly to your pages. I haven't used those directly, and mostly what I hear is that it's still a bit risky for the reasons I mentioned. So I would stick to letting it research and write content, but as far as the posting it yourself, I would do that yourself so you can look things over before it goes live.
And let's see, next question was just your thoughts on Microsoft Copilot. This attendee was not at the beginning of our conversation, so if you adjust that, they apologize. But if do you have any thoughts on Microsoft Copilot?
Yeah, that's a great question. Copilot, I didn't mention specifically. The history is Microsoft was an early partner with OpenAI. So all of Microsoft Copilot just uses ChatGPT. It's not its own AI system. So when you ask a question to Copilot or ask it to generate an image, it's just literally going to the ChatGPT servers and getting the result back from them. Copilot is just essentially ChatGPT, but it's integrated into Windows. So it pops up in various places like the Photos app, and Microsoft is putting it in lots of places to help you be more productive. So I think it's fine. It gives you the same type of results as ChatGPT would, except it's kind of integrated into the Windows interface. So, there's no problem with using it. I think it's just as accurate as ChatGPT.
Let's see. What is the best way for any of these AI sites to prefer your company over others? For example, a client searches for construction companies in the area. Is there any way we can know for certain our company will pop up for this client?
So that's a good question. And no, there's not currently any way you can influence the kind of search result ranking in AI, though I do believe this is becoming a more hot topic than it was ever before. Typically you would search Google for that. And Google would say, okay, I'm going to look at all these 100 websites. I'm going to provide like my top 10, right? And they're ranked one, two, three, four, five. How AI is going to, research and find a list to show you with the same question is it's not like a Google who has they wrote a custom algorithm, because AI is kind of thinking a little bit more spontaneously, actually. They're going much deeper. So they're looking at more data points than Google does in their search result. So there's currently no way to influence that. Though I think a lot of businesses would like to know how to do that, and maybe eventually there'll be some sort of system in place. But I think it's still a couple of years away.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Okay, let's see. We have two more questions. One is I am in the midst of doing a business plan for a small business loan, and I'm working on projections. With the variability of these AIs, would it be useful to upload the 2 years of info to get these projections, or should I be worried about inaccuracies?
So I find that when doing financial calculations, I have not seen a mistake, right? And I've actually done this a couple times a month for the last few years with various financial things. I think it's very good with math. It's very good at understanding an Excel spreadsheet and being able to answer questions, modify it, and project things from your data. Yeah, so in my experience, I've never seen it make a math error in Excel. So I would do it. It wouldn't hurt to do it both in ChatGPT and in Gemini, and essentially see if there's any differences in their answers, because if one does give a different answer to a simple math question, which should be the only one answer type of question, right? There's one right answer to that. If it's a projection thing, I would do two. And if they both come up with the same output, you can be pretty sure they're both being accurate. And yeah, it would just take you an extra couple minutes to run them through the two different systems.
That makes sense. Let's see. This is further on earlier when you were discussing, I think it was with Gemini, and just this attendee, I think, is looking for your thoughts on this. The Gemini search isn't that great just yet, unfortunately. I found that Gemini only does the drive portion if you're a drive business customer.
Yes, I think that's true. And I am a Drive business customer. I pay $15 or $18 a month, and I get a membership in Google Drive. And for that, you're right, the Gemini has more integrations. If you're on that free level, like I said, you do not have access to some of the benefits from both ChatGPT and Gemini. So that's true. You do not have some of the deep search features. I believe Gemini still has a pretty basic search feature on the website in the upper left-hand corner if you're just looking to search through text in your chat history. That should work fine for the free users. But the deeper research from your Google Drive files, you will have to be a paid, it's called now Google Workspace user, and those plans start around $12, $14 a month.
Thanks for elaborating on that. Let's see. Next question. Can AI help with some basic legal needs? For example, a non-disclosure agreement, intellectual property, to draft materials versus absorbing legal expenses. They're just
Mhm.
trying to cut costs, and they found AI to be very helpful with legal docs, though they're sure there's some risk. Any thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely used AI for the common legal documents before, absolutely. And even looking at a legal document that's been sent to a business and saying, hey, are there any red flags here? Does this seem standard? And it can provide some insights. It won't replace a lawyer, right? Like the AI is not a certified legal attorney, right? So there's certain risks where if you used AI for something and then you ended up going to court and you said, the AI told me this, it's not going to hold up in court because AI is not like a legal expert that's really recognized in court. In fact, when they hallucinate, they made a few pretty bad mistakes in court cases in the last few years. So it can't really replace a human lawyer, but I understand the incentive because it's very fast and very cheap. So I would say, you know, that it's going to be best if you can have a human like double check a contract that AI made. And generally speaking, they're probably going to be fine, especially for these common things, non-disclosure agreements and things like that, which, you can just Google that and find 100 NDAs. And who's to say those are any better or worse than what AI would write for you? And it's the same risk. If you find an NDA on some random website and you go forward with that, is it 100% accurate for you? Who knows? So maybe, you need to use a lawyer in any case to be 100% sure. But I think in my experience, AI has been very helpful for me in small businesses I've used it with and help them use. So my advice would be proceed with it, but be a little cautious. And if you're able to double check that with a human attorney, but it's kind of about your risk tolerance, I think. And also keep an eye on how AI progresses there because I think AI submissible evidence in court cases and stuff is getting more commonplace. And so we might see that AI, really they do replace lawyers in a few years. We'll have to see how that progresses. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Again, I'm not a legal expert. I'm just telling you from my experience what I've seen and what I'd recommend.
Great. At the moment, we have no other questions, so I'll put out a last shout out for questions. And Cameron, do you have any last words of wisdom for us?
I think the questions were great. The word of wisdom is to keep an eye on these trends. Like everybody had really good points, and as AI changes in the next 3 or 6 months, like some of the answers will probably be different. So it's always good to stay abreast of what's happening here. And you can come to the next training session we have on AI through the SBDC whenever that's scheduled, so that's a good source of information. But keep an eye out in the news because it's definitely changing how small businesses can operate on the internet and make revenue from the internet pretty drastically, as we've seen.
Yep. Okay. Thank you so much, Cameron. Oh, let's see. We might have had another. Um, there's another question. Are infographics that AI makes okay for me to use in my company?
The short answer is yes. Currently, and as I said, there's several kind of pending court cases and legal debates about this. But the current status that I understand is that any image generated, so it could be, a photorealistic mock-up of a product, it could be an infograph, any image if you type in the prompt to AI and it gives you some output, that's yours. You own it. You thought of the prompt, I guess, even if the output is derived from like other artists' work. So currently that's where it stands. It is kind of a gray area, and like I said, it is evolving and changing as the dialogue about this continues.
All right. That is it. Cameron, again, thank you. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. As a reminder, you will receive an email with a link to both the recording and to the slides. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. This webinar and other SBD resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. We hope to see you all in our next session. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.